Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. I'm Bill.
I'm Linda.
I'm Seth.
I'm Jenna.
And I'm Chris.
And I'm Stu.
And we got an exciting away mission that the crew of the Galactic Driftwood went on. At least most of us. Jenna was somebody had to stay back and man the ship, right, Jenna?
Yeah, I mean, you needed somebody to call in case shit went down, so I could roll up with sage and holy water and extra Bibles.
I could at least want to tell our story if we didn't return.
Full jumpsuit and a proton pack.
Yeah, I do have that behind glass break in case of emergency.
Yeah, so we had a weekend where we went up to is it Crofton?
Yes.
Crofton, yes.
Crofton, Nebraska, to the haunted Argo Hotel. And we're going to be detailing those experiences at the Argo in our second episode, which will happen a week from now. This episode is going to be the start of that whole adventure. And in order to kind of get us in the mood for that whole thing, we thought, well, what better way to kick it off than to start out at an animal graveyard? And then from there...
It's an interesting way to describe it.
What's that?
That's an interesting way to describe it.
I mean, I had Pet Cemetery flashed in my head at that point.
Right.
But then I realized they were nobody's pets if there were no humans.
Right. That's why I chose just the animal graveyard. Very accurate description, right?
So you really don't believe in ancient aliens then, Jenna?
Didn't say that.
She just doesn't believe they had pets that they left buried here.
I thought we were the pets of the ancient aliens.
Ooh,
Right. Yeah. Good one.
That's dark.
That's dark.
We are the border collies of the galactic pet world.
The border collies.
Trying to imagine any alien that might have Jenna as a pet, and I'm just imagining an alien that has a lot of bit fingers.
Well, it's like those people that have alligators as pets, right? Or lions or whatever.
Oh,
You got to take a chance
Pixel.
sometimes. You got to live dangerously, right, Jenna?
You're talking about lions, and there's Pixel.
Yep.
What's that?
Yes, this is a lion, and history will back me up on this.
Yes. So anyway, our first trip, as I mentioned, was the animal graveyard, better known to most people as Ashfalls Fossil Beds State Park, or State something or other.
It is a historical park here.
State
in
Historical
Nebraska.
Park. And for those of you that haven't been there, Stu, you want to give us a little bit of a history lesson on what Ashfalls is? And while you're doing that, I'll start a little video that shows the entry area when you first go in and buy your tickets, and then we'll transition to showing the actual fossil digs that they've been doing there. So go ahead, Stu.
Okay. Well, if you want to talk about history, starts back 11.83 million years ago when that hot spot that we now know as Yellowstone National Park that we're always afraid is going to erupt did in fact erupt and blanketed a big chunk of North America in ash at varying depths. Meanwhile, out here in northern Nebraska, mind their own business, are a bunch of rhinoceros and three-toed horses and one-toed horses and a crested crane, and got some camels, got some saber-toothed deer,
Bone-crushing dogs,
raccoon dogs, all kinds of mean, nasty, ugly mammals in this water hole just trying to get by, and are successively buried in this ash. Over the intervening weeks and months, they kept inhaling this ash and getting sicker and sicker. and getting closer and closer to this water hole, trying to wash it out of their lungs, out of their mouths. And that's where most of them finally dropped dead. And the ash bed was so thick, it's about 6 feet down, if I recall, that they were preserved as essentially as articulated skeletons. And it is, for all intents and purposes, a unique site. I don't know of anything else like this literally in the world where they are preserved in that state. It's really amazing.
And the interesting thing to me is that the animals are layered in such a way that you can kind of see which ones ended up succumbing to suffocation first, because they're on the lower layers, and then as you get up higher and higher, you see different animals.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Stu, I think there's no other place in the world like this, because the way we dig and do architecture in North America came so much later that it would have been early humans that would have found any possible similar sites in Europe and Africa, and they just would have probably destroyed it rather than preserved it.
You could there's definitely a possibility that's the case. The other thing is that this is just 1,000,000 to 1 shot. I mean, it had to be a water hole that was deep enough to everybody to get down and for the ash to pile on top of it. In fact, as they go down this ash bed, even above the layer of the rhinos, they were able to find ripples in the ash, indicating that there was still some water going across there as it was coming down. It's really a remarkable find. It's some stuff's just 1,000,000 to 1 shot that this ever existed.
Not something that was common around the planet, obviously.
No.
So
well, and here, and one of the rangers there mentioned. We kind of brought that up at one point, is how rare this site was. And he said, well, yeah, he said, the other part is, he said, if you look at one of these maps and it shows the subsequent glaciation period and how these glaciers came down and basically just scoured from pretty much Ashfalls to the east, the land. And so any of that record of that, those eruptions and similar type water holes where these animals would have died would have just been scoured by these heavy glaciers and drug out to sea. So he said it's just fortunate that this happened to be just beyond the edge of the last glaciation period, and so that's why we have it. So,
It was mentioned before that the animals had suffocated. Can you go back to the picture of my hand that has the ash in there?
Yeah.
There's the animal that has my hand in his mouth.
Right. Wanted to point out that the shininess that you can kind of see in there is all like little tiny glass shards. So what had happened was, if I recall correctly, the animals were at the watering hole because they had been breathing in this ash, and it was just basically tearing up their throat and their lungs, and they got really thirsty, and eventually they succumbed to those wounds. But the
ash is just very, 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 very fine, sharp ground glass.
Yep.
And once that gets in your lungs, that's not getting out.
Yeah, imagine that the air is just nothing but that.
That's all. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Haunted image.
Sorry, you better put an epileptic seizure warning or something on the.
Or at least.
I don't know why it does that.
Or at least some EDM music.
Right.
That too.
We'll try it one more time.
EDM, I guess. EDM.
There it is.
What is it?
There it is.
There it is.
I automatically had EDM music playing in my head.
Yeah, so you can see a little bit of the shininess there, the little glass shard. So
on one of my previous visits, Mike Voorhees, the lead paleontologist of the site, he did emphasize that they have to bury all the ash they bring out because otherwise it's unsafe. It's still 11.83 million years later, it is still potentially deadly or hazardous to breathe in. So it's nasty stuff.
Meanwhile, we're just spreading it in our hands, going about our business of the day.
In volume.
In volume, right?
Chris is looking at his hand.
Right?
So if you fast forward from 11.83 million years ago to 1973, one of the local landowners is out there just doing his thing, grazing cattle, and he sees this rhino skull protruding from this cliff. And he calls in the State Museum, and then Mike Voorhees, and this very young guy, comes out, take a look at it, and they start excavating. They realize what they have there, and they do a great dig where they get incredible specimens, sponsored by National Geographic in the 1980s. And a lot of these specimens are still at the State Museum in Lincoln, known affectionately as Elephant Hall or Morrill Hall. But then they realized the extent of the water hole and said, okay, we've gotten a good sample of the fossils available here. Why don't we try to preserve the rest of the site in situ? Because all these skeletons, they come out articulated because they were so far below the water and the ash. Oh, and by the way, the idea of this being a water hole is not just idle speculation. The first evidence that this was a water hole was they were able to find that this is a level of preservation. They're able to find the remaining diatoms from the pond to say this was an aquatic environment. People were down the water. So there's lots of evidence that's preserved there. So they said, let's leave them in situ, leave them right there. We're going to put this little structure over it they just call it the Rhino Barn, because it was about the size of a small barn. And then we'll, since it takes so long to really do this excavation properly, to leave them as articulated skeletons, we will allow people to come by and watch intern paleontologists uncover these skeletons. And so you have this little structure where people would go around and walk around and see it. And then in the late 1990s, the Hubbard family donated about $1 million to build the current structure, which is about the size of, I'd say, like a Class B or Class C basketball gym. So it's a pretty big. Well, as you can see the pictures, it's a pretty big edifice.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to continue to excavate in there for as long as they can, and leave everything again in situ in its original position until they for as long as they can get away with it, really.
In my mind, watching paleontologists work would be similar to watching grass grow. It'd be very slow, painstaking, methodical work. And you'd be sitting there. It'd be a good place probably if you wanted to take a nap. Just get there, take a nap, and then listen for the occasional Eureka.
No, after I saw Jurassic Park as a kid, I used to fantasize about going out to the desert with like my toothbrush and my little pick and digging out dinosaur bones.
I mean,
especially like this is the perfect time to be a paleontologist or any type of like digging humanities field, because now you have podcasts to listen to as you do it.
That's
true.
Yeah,
true.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Wonderful podcasts like ours, Galactic Driftwood.
Yeah. So highly recommended site if you happen to be out in that area of Nebraska. Check it out. Can't remember what the entrance fee was. Does anybody remember? It wasn't that expensive.
It's nominal. And you do have to have a state park sticker so you can get a 1 day, or if you have membership already, you're in for that. It's like $6 or $7, something like that. It's nominal.
Yeah. I think it was $7.50.
Yeah.
Right. All right.
You're not for what you get to see. It's very like Stu said, it's a nominal fee. Like
they are.
And no matter how young or how old you are, there's something there that you can take away, some new information that you can glean out of the stories and the history and the background and the fossils that they found. I mean, the first time we went there, I was amazed that there had been camels living in Nebraska, or rhinoceroses. You think only of that sort of thing in Africa. So, yeah, it was great. And I guess they closed now for the season?
I think so. Yeah, I think
October 9th, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we are entering the time in Nebraska where you could get a foot of snow at any given moment, and that's not exactly accessible.
You could become a new addition to the exhibit on your way between the entry.
That's probably true, yeah.
And the Rhino Barn if a blizzard comes in. So, yeah. So we were there. what would you say? We were there for maybe an hour or two, something like that.
Couple hours,
Yeah.
yeah.
A couple hours. Yeah. So then we left there, and Stu took us to the remains of a ghost town. And there's not much left, right, Stu? Most of the buildings are gone, but there was one schoolhouse, which we'll show towards the end of the video. But I'll start some video here. We took a drone so we could do some aerial footage because a lot of it's in this overgrown area.
And what was the name of the town? It was
Venus.
Venus. That's
Venus.
right.
Entirely appropriate for this podcast, I thought.
Yeah. So here's some aerial footage. So Stu, I'll let you go ahead and take over and talk about what we're looking at.
What we're looking at? Well, Venus was, as a town, was declared, I guess. It was an unincorporated community. It was staked out in the late 1870s. In 1879, the general store went up. And, well, as you can see, it's sort of out in the middle of nowhere, sort of an outpost for folks who, for all the local ranchers around the area to come in and buy stuff and drop off their mail. There's a general store with a post office. It went going as long as they could keep it going. From what we were able to discern, as when the video goes past it, I'll point it out. The post office just wasn't very big. There just wasn't too much to it. Just basically a building with a desk. Okay, I think you're. Yeah, in fact, if we pause the videos a little bit and back it up just a skosh from where it was. Can you do that?
Yep.
Okay. Pause it right there, right there. I think what you're looking at there.
Trying to find a good still stop. There we go.
Yeah. You're seeing two structures there. The big one is what remains of the general store.
Oh wow.
And you can see it's just completely collapsed under its own weight. There are some photos online of it still standing, but it's just like leaning over one side. And when you go out there, you realize that somebody was trying to keep it from falling over by attaching a cable to a tree.
Oh.
Across the way.
Huh.
And eventually the tree gave way, and boom, with the general store. But the little pile over to the left there of the picture, that I'm thinking must have been the post office, because in the remains you can still see what's left of a desk. I thought it was just a shed until I saw that the windows had kind of an elaborate latch system that you normally would see in a house. Like, well, there must have been a human being in there doing something. So that was your little itty bitty post office. Just drop off mail and pick it up. And then there was a store next to it. The post office went out in 1959, and then the store went out in store held on, I should say, until 1979. In which case it was just kind of left there. And well, time will do what time will do. I am not sure what that cement circle out in front of it is. I was looking around for holes to see if there was a fuel tank underneath, if they were using it as a gas station, but I don't think that was the case. And it's back a little ways from the road, so I'm wondering if at one point they didn't have sort of a parking lot sort of
in front of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Probably makes sense for the post office, at least, in the store.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that building we were just looking at there, do we know what that was?
That looked like a residence.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because when you go down the storm cellar, I think you may have some video of that, or maybe some pictures of that. There's a little storm cellar underneath that none of us were, frankly, brave enough to try to go into. That
brave enough. None of us were dumb enough to go into it.
Jenna would have done it.
Jenna would have been inside that collapsing house before we could have stopped her.
Jenna's obviously the most adventurous one of the group.
Or the most cat-like one.
Yes, right.
Yeah. And the existence of this town and a couple others in the area, they do speak to, the cattle industry at the time, how there were enough ranches going that you could have a little general store out there because you'd have enough of an audience for it, enough of a population to support it. And over time, as ranches have consolidated and gotten bigger and bigger and have less and less manpower involved, well, little towns like this,
dried up,
small businesses out there just can't make a go of it. And, well, what you see is what's left.
Right.
Who's that guy in the skirt?
Linda, you know what happened to the last person who called it a skirt. They were killed.
Oh.
Yeah, so we don't. So you were saying, Stu, we don't know what that concrete circle represents or what it was there for.
Not exactly. I'm
Do you
thinking.
think it was a silo?
That's what I think.
Oh, maybe.
Seems
Well,
the right size.
I don't know why you'd put it there.
Seth, how did you?
History is littered with. I don't know why they put that theirs.
Yeah, right.
Could have been. Well, and I'm not seeing any remnants of this. I mean, here you got this pile of store next to it, but I don't see any remnants of silo.
Yeah.
Is that another concrete circle there?
Yes.
What's now the bottom of the. See, I don't know. That wasn't even
Those
really
look bigger.
Yeah,
Those look
I didn't.
bigger.
I don't even remember seeing that from ground level.
Huh.
It could well have been. There's a silo next to the school, so
A couple of
there's
them.
a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're probably right. That's probably what it was. Probably as the town, as they realize nobody's really going to do much with the town here. Well, let's just drop a silo next to the store.
And it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, as you can see.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, we did drive quite a ways to get here. So
That is certainly a well manicured square of trees there, isn't it?
It is.
Yes. It's
There's
kind of
beautiful
fun to see
Nebraska.
the area from an altitude. You can see down below the crop circles.
Oh yeah. Yep. Those are purposeful crop
Yeah, those are not
circles.
alien created. We know how those are made.
Do we?
Yeah, so that was a fun experience going to the ghost town and checking that out. Now there is another building that was, I guess, part of the ghost town that's just probably less than a block drive from here. That we
that
have
was
some
the
video
school.
of. That was
right?
the school, yeah. It was just about a block away, so we're going to show that footage here in just a second. So, anything else you wanted to add about this area, Stu?
Not really. One thing that is remarkable, as you can see that truck pull through, is really how much traffic those roads do still get. Honestly,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, it's pretty regular. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
we
why I
got
was
some
thinking
looks.
We got
about
some
Nebraska.
looks.
Yeah.
It was because of the guy in the kilt.
Yeah, that's one of the things I say about Nebraska tourism. Really, is there's not a lot of danger because if you get stuck out there, it isn't like being stuck in Death Valley or some of the places in the states further west. Someone will be along that'll probably be able to help you out. So
Yeah,
You just hope it's the right person. Let's be honest.
right.
Mhm.
And not somebody that's going to lock you in their tornado shelter and send you down some skin lotion to put on periodically.
What was it like?
Teasing you.
What was it like walking through some of that? Is that pretty? Looks like
Prickly?
it's pretty tall grass.
And
Yeah.
a couple places where you can trip and sprain your ankles. So you know,
Oh.
for the
Don't
most
do
part, it
that.
was all right.
yeah, we were all
Exactly.
calling out, hey, there's a part of a foundation over here, or there's
Yeah.
a hole. And so just be careful about it.
Yep.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's not.
It'd
This
be
area
interesting
wasn't
to
too bad. It was actually closer to the initial house that we were looking at up there in the background there.
Mhm.
That place was a bit sketchy to walk around, but everything else wasn't too bad.
Yeah. And you didn't see any ghosts while you were there.
I wasn't looking for them, so
Yeah.
I didn't see any ghosts, and I was looking.
Yeah.
The camera
Yeah,
certainly
it
didn't
is
pick up
one
any.
thing to point out. One of my first big trips I took through Nebraska, I had people on the trip from Colorado and California. And I just pointed out that unlike your states, Nebraska's pioneer narrative really doesn't contain any stories of cannibalism. So you're going to be a little better off. If
That's
you think
That's
that
because there was plenty of things around to eat. You didn't have to eat the humans.
Right. You could
Well,
eat the
that-
three-toed deer or the rhinoceros or the camel.
I'm remembering most is Seth's
look at
reaction to the
those.
fact that there were such a thing as saber-toothed deer.
Yes.
I
was
just
kinda
think it's a
weird.
weird thing. It's like you
Obviously-
hear saber tooth and then deer, and those like two bits
Thing-
are
Yeah.
Incongruous.
Seth, you need to go on the internet and look up deer eating birds. Like there's
No.
videos.
oh yeah,
of
I've
birds-
No.
seen that. Like
No.
I know. It's just the cognitive
some
dissonance of hearing
animals shouldn't
saber tooth
exist, but
deer.
here we are.
All right. All right. Well, we're going to jump to the schoolhouse video. So the schoolhouse was a much more of a brick structure. So it's largely still intact. So we'll start that now. That has audio of Stu telling us some of the history there. So we'll just kind of watch and listen. And here we go.
We'll shut up now.
Oh, and as we walked in, it just suddenly started raining. It had been a partly cloudy day. Rain cloud appeared overhead and it started sprinkling.
The school was built in 1924, funded by Section 16 of this township under the Homestead Act. In one room, children from the ages of 5 to 12 would learn their lessons from a teacher on the stage. In 1949,
They ate that
the central United States experienced one of the worst blizzards in the history of the country. Snow would drift upwards of 5 or 6 feet. In some rural areas, such as this, you would see accumulations up to 12 feet, creating a veritable wall of snow and ice. In between storms, the children would have class here.
You almost fell through the floor there.
That'll happen.
Wasn't the strongest floor, but you know,
No.
it is old.
2 boys
It's like an old
set
organ
out
in
from their
there.
home,
Old upright.
approximately 3/8 of a mile from here in nearby Venus, Nebraska.
It is very nearby.
On their way there, a freak blizzard struck the area. The bodies were never found. Even today, you can still hear their voices calling across the northern plains.
Dun, dun, dun.
None of the foregoing is even close to true, with the exception of the details about the Homestead Act.
Thank you, Stu.
But I hope you enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a fixer-upper. But if you're looking for a schoolhouse, you want to be a school marm for a ghost town.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 1924 ballpark is about right from the architecture. That's the time that my homeschool was founded. But that's a ballpark. So it's a little too new to have been involved in the 1888 blizzard out in the northern plains that killed. I didn't realize until today hundreds of school children. That
God.
it was this freak blizzard. It was this beautiful sunny January day, and so nobody even had coats. They just sent the kids to school. And then, boom.
Boom.
So Nebraska weather, you can be terribly vulnerable to that if you're not careful. But 1949 was the worst winter we've ever had. That is just epic. I've seen pictures of drifts by the side of the road that were like probably 4 feet taller than a school bus.
Huh.
I mean, it's almost surreal how much snow they got.
Huh.
So yeah, if you're going to make up a ghost story about people dying in a blizzard from that schoolhouse, 1949 is a good year for that.
Yeah. Now, we should mention, if you happen to be going up to this area to check any of this stuff out, if you go to Ashfalls, there's a great little restaurant you can stop at for lunch where we stopped on our way back. It's Green Gables, I think, right, Linda, is the name?
Yes.
Yep.
There's
Anyway.
1949 blizzard
Holy
picture.
cow.
Yep. I wasn't lying, was I?
No.
Jeez.
Game of Thrones thought they had a bad problem with winter, right? Right.
I mean, that's a good excuse to not shovel the walk, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Right.
something you just, nope, not today. Not this
Right.
week. Not
Yeah,
this
Right.
one.
every family history from every family that was out there that year have these incredible stories of just trying to survive that thing. It was just amazing how the snow.
Okay, so the restaurant's in Royal, Nebraska.
Royal, Nebraska, Green Gables. And they have great chicken and pies and all kinds of good comfort food there. Stopped there for lunch before we went to the ghost town. Didn't want to face the ghosts on an empty stomach. So that was the first half of our trip to kind of get us in the mood for the second part, which we'll cover in our next episode. And that's where we go to the Argo Hotel in Crofton, and we spend the night there. We rented the most haunted suite in the hotel, and we also played Dungeons and Dragons in the lobby. And we got taken down to the basement area, and the basement area is very cool. A lot of great restoration down there. Now, the basement, they say...
save it.
Save it. We'll cover it in the...
yeah.
Surprise.
Right. So, something to look forward to for the next episode. So, anyway... anybody have anything they want to add before?
Special thanks to Stu for
very good job.
Stu. We
never
would have known about any of this if
I know, right?
Stu hadn't known where to find stuff and where to tell us how to get there.
Well, the other thing you'll see, by the way, if you go out to that ghost town, is which I didn't even realize. Again, I've just a little background on my life. I've been doing the Nebraska passport crisscrossing the state since for the last 14 years or so. And I did not realize that there was a reasonably substantial little Amish settlement in the area of that ghost town. Mm-hmm. This being relevant, that when I went to scout the area for the podcast, we ran into a stand by the side of the road selling various and sundry canned goods and other stuff. And so I ended up buying a jar of cinnamon pickles that I hadn't seen since the days my grandmother was canning. If you go up there in the spring or summer, watch out for the Amish stands, and they're just wonderful. Great folks.
All right.
Watch out for the Amish stands. They strike without warning.
Invading your house with canned goods, Seth.
One of the best invasions.
Thank you all for watching. And I hope you enjoyed this program. I'm sure you'll enjoy the next one. We had a lot of fun there at the hotel, and can't wait to tell you all about it. So we will see you next week. Until then, take care and be safe out there. Bye-bye.
Courage.
Oops.
Oh.
Well, we're all still here.
All right.
I love
They can all still see us.
Ah!
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.